So, as I said, you're all very welcome to this NasCSO meeting on agriculture and fisheries. We're delighted to be joined by so many of you, so thanks so much to everyone who's joined, a range of organisations that you'll see in the meeting pack, and I'll go through, I'll name a few of you who are here and invite you to introduce yourselves shortly. Basically, what we're going to run through today is a bit about NasCSO. Apologies, my slides are failing on me here. A bit about NasCSO, who we are in European Movement Ireland, the format of today, and I'll introduce our speakers and then turn to yourselves, the civil society representatives. It is about you, it's about connecting you to the European Parliament and to your MEPs more, developing those connections. So that's why we're here today, and we want to hear from you, particularly after the difficult year and a half that it's been. So very quickly, European Movement Ireland, the organisation that myself and a few colleagues here in the room work for, is an NGO working on European affairs in Ireland, the longest established NGO since 1954. And our goal is to connect Ireland and Europe more and develop the connections that exist between Ireland and countries across Europe, and indeed to share information with the EU and the workings of the EU. So this is one of our projects, NasCSO. And essentially, for anyone who doesn't have Gaeilge, NASC is the Irish word for connection. So this is about developing and building on those connections with civil society representatives such as yourselves, and with your elected Irish MEPs. A reminder that I'm sure we all know, the European Parliament's role is, part of its role is to act as a voice for European citizens and to represent citizens at EU level. It's about parliamentary democracy, engaging and influencing debate at EU level. And this is why this is a NasCSO project, and we're all here to have a discussion today. So as part of NasCSO, we have organised a series of thematic roundtable meetings, and we'll shortly be moving into regional meetings too. So you may be invited to another one if you have the time and wish to join. We've had ones, as I say, agriculture, fisheries, and a number of different issues, women's issues, LGBT issues. We had one Ask Gaeilge, and we'll now be moving into regional meetings where we'll be focusing more on issues affecting people in specific regions around Ireland. And as I say, this is a chance to engage directly with your elected MEPs in small interest and regional groups in this roundtable sort of format, and as best as we can on Zoom. We hope to do some in person, as I say, coming around to different parts of Ireland. So we will keep you informed about that. And as I say, all of the information is available at Gaeilge. We had a meeting through Gaeilge, so if anyone needs any information or would prefer to get their information about NasCSO through Gaeilge, you can contact us on our bit. And these are just some of the meetings that we've held recently. You can watch all of them back on our website there that you would have gotten the link to. There was an official launch event and a couple of others, as I say, on equality, diversity, Gaeilge, and so on. And do keep in touch with us and keep up to date on NasCSO meetings and news. And indeed, let us know if there's anything else that we can provide you with from the project. If you'd like directly contact your MEPs or advocate for any sort of change or supports for your organisations, do get in touch with us. You can fill in the form there on the website, and we'll keep you posted on all of the NasCSO updates, meetings, news, and of course, connect you with your MEPs as best you wish. Kieran O'Driscoll, my colleague, is joining me today. He's our Policy and Research Officer in EM Ireland. And here are just some of the bits that Kieran has done. We kind of call him, behind his back, maybe our fisheries representative, and he's our real expert in-house on fisheries. He addressed the PESH committee recently, and he does a number of opinion pieces for us each year. And he spoke on France 24, the late debate, and a couple of other broadcasts. So he'll be sharing some of his wisdom with us later based on the work that he does with us in European Movement Ireland, that I hope will be interesting. I won't go through all of the slides here, but we will share them with you afterwards, just if anybody needs some of that kind of background of what the intergroups of the European Parliament are, what the committees are, and how the Parliament functions. There's lots of detail there that we'll send on to you afterwards. Us here today with you, the NasCSO team, myself, Lisa Rev, I'm Head of Communications and Education and the lead on NasCSO. As I mentioned, Kieran is our Policy and Research Officer, and Caoimhe and Warin work with me closely on the NasCSO team. and many of them were in touch with you over the last few weeks. Patrick O'Riordan is also with us from the European Parliament Liaison Office in Ireland, as well as Gabriele and Killian. And here are just some of you. I know some people have had replacements and so on and so forth in the last few days. So some of the organisations who are represented today listed up here, and I'll ask you to introduce yourselves very shortly. So as I say, we're going to introduce all of you firstly and chat to the MEPs then. And indeed, if you'd like to find more information about NasCSO or keep in touch with us, please do drop us an email at any point to the email addresses you would have received the invites from, or to info@europeanmovement.ie, and follow us on social media. So firstly, I might stop sharing screen and just come around to ask you all to introduce yourself briefly, just by way of the people I can see on screen. Colm, could I ask you to introduce yourself first from Cuan Beo?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colm O'Dowd, and I represent Cuan Beo. We're I suppose a coastal economic development and environmental group in the Southeast Galway Bay catchment, and we're conducting work there with a couple of projects in education and some restoration projects for the native oyster in Galway Bay. And we're obviously trying to link up with the people on the coast and the farmers up in the Highlands to influence how they manage the land in that area.
Great, thanks a million for joining us. Next person I can see is Anita.
Sorry, I was on mute there.
No worries.
2 years in.
We're still doing it.
I'm here representing Sea Synergy, which is an education and marine awareness activity centre in South Kerry. And we work across sort of marine related sustainable tourism and education, sort of from early years right through to research. So for example, we deliver the Marine Explorers programme in the Southwest, which is the heritage programme. We also work with the Erasmus scheme for interns, and we're currently doing EPA funded research around sort of sustainable solutions at local scale for marine plastic waste, and then also doing baseline data for native oysters, whales and dolphins and other species. So that's us.
It's been really fascinating to see all of your organisations and read up on them in the last few days. So thanks, Anita, and lovely background. Seamus Bonner, I might turn to yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Seamus Bonner, based on Arnmore in Donegal, and I'm secretary of IMRO, which is a representative organisation for marine on the offshore islands. So we're based in Donegal, Mayo, Galway and Cork. So small scale generally, fishing, and we have some other projects ongoing as well.
Great, thanks Seamus. And NASA or NASA, sorry.
Hi there, so it's NASA. How are you? I'm here I work with the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association, and I'm here today with our president, Dermot Kelleher, and Eddie Punch, our general secretary. We represent dry stock farmers, cattle and sheep farmers throughout the country. And maybe Eddie or Dermot would like to say a few words as well. Thank you.
Thanks, NASA. Dermot, we can't hear you, although
you know, so sorry. Can you hear me now, dear?
We can indeed.
Yeah, my name is Dermot Kelleher. I'm from West Cork. I'm national president of the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers. We represent suckler, sheep, beef farmers, smaller tillage farmers. We actually represent the poorer end of Irish agriculture, and that's it. I'm Eddie Punch, the general secretary, is here as well. But we represent the dry stocks section. In other words, we don't have no dairy committee as such. Thanks very much.
Great, Dermot. Thanks for being with us. And Connor from Galway Rural Development.
Good afternoon. Sorry, Connor Carty is my name. I'm the leader program manager here in Galway Rural Development. So we administer Leader, the Rural Development Leader Fund in East Galway. So that's for rural enterprises and community groups in East Galway, and obviously try to assist as much as possible with the coastal communities that we would have here in East Galway. So we obviously there would work with the likes of Cumbio, etc., those kinds of community groups. But we also try and assist through agro-diversification, I suppose in general, for rural enterprises such as farming enterprises. So that's we run that program, that funding program across East Galway.
Great, Conor, thanks a million. And Patrick Murphy.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Yeah, so my name is Patrick Murphy. I am the CEO of the Irish Southwest Fish Producers Organisation. We're a representative body of fishermen from 7 metres up to 37 metres, fishing all around the coast of Ireland from the Bay of Biscay up to Norwegian waters. We try to secure a future for our industry, and we work on policies, technical measures. We work with the department and setting quotas and stuff like that. So I'm a fisherman all my life, very passionate about the job, and I'm looking forward to having some major discussions here, and delighted to introduce myself to you and to learn about you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick, for joining us. John Enright.
Thanks, Lisa. My name is John Enright. I'm the General Secretary of ICMSA, the Irish Premium Mixed Suppliers Association. We're a farm representative body with 16,000 members, principally dairy farmers. And I suppose our role is to represent them on the various issues that come up on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Thank you.
Great. I think I may have gotten Edward. Is there anyone I missed? Seamus, apologies. We can't hear you there, Seamus, sorry. I think it's on mute.
Sorry, wait a minute, on mute.
There you are.
Talking to myself.
Oh, it's got on mute again.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Jeeb, my name is Seamus Branagh. I live here in West Galway in Carna. I represent the National Inshore Fishermen's Association. We represent inshore fishermen all around the country. In the inshore sector, up to 18 metres, we liaison with government departments, government semi-state organisations like BIM and the Marine Institute and any other organisation that is relevant to inshore fishing. And our aim is to promote inshore fishing and ensure that there will be a future for inshore fishermen. I'm an inshore fisherman myself at the moment, so to inshore fishermen for the likes of, maybe I'm gone a bit old for it now, for the likes of my son and for my community and other inshore coastal communities around the country.
Great, Seamus. Thanks a million, and thanks to everyone for introducing yourself. Nora Park, I think, as well. I may not have gotten.
Hello, I'm Nora Park. I work with Killybegs Fishermen's Organisation, which is a producer organisation. It's the largest fisheries producer organisation in Ireland. We are largely a pelagic group, but we also have whitefish members and potters, crabbers, in other words. We have members, our base is in Donegal, but we also have members down as far as the Aran Islands. We're involved with the various advisory councils, very active members of the Northwestern Waters, the Pelagic, the Markets and the Long Distance Advisory Councils. We also still have some tenuous relationships with some of the organisations in the UK, which are actually quite important now that we have Brexit. And we have a number of very serious issues as a result of Brexit, and I would be delighted if our representatives at MEP level would listen to some of the problems that we have and maybe help us solve them. Thank you.
Oh, Lisa, you're just on mute there.
You're all still failing with it. Absolutely, Nora. And I think I was hesitant to mention the B word, but indeed it's something that's having a huge impact still, as well as our recovery from COVID-19. So look forward to discussing more. So I'm now going to introduce our MEPs, starting with Deirdre Clune, if I may, who's just going to say a few words as well. And after that, folks, we'll come around to you all for your questions, discussions, comments, and to really get this roundtable meeting kicked off with discussion. So Deirdre, of course, is a member of the European People's Party group in the Parliament. She's a Fine Gael MEP for Ireland South. And of course, she was a TD previously for Cork South Central. There are many things I could say about Deirdre, but I will let her say herself and pass over to her. Deirdre, thanks so much for being with us. And folks, just a reminder, if you'd like to just see Deirdre full screen, you can click speaker view up the top right-hand corner. Thanks, Deirdre, for joining me.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for inviting me, and good afternoon, everybody. As some of you I've met numerous occasions, others I haven't at all, but glad to be engaging with you and to hear what you have to say this afternoon. I don't sit on the Fisheries or the Agriculture Committee, but nonetheless, all these issues eventually come to plenary, and we have to make decisions there. But I'm happy just to be with you this afternoon to give you a little bit about myself, the work I do. As Lisa mentioned, I'm a member of the Parliament now. I'm living in Cork. I represent Ireland South constituency, which is half the country, the southern half of the country almost. This is my second term in Parliament, and I was in the Dáil previously as well. So at the present, I'm on the Internal Market Consumer Affairs Committee, and I'm also a substitute member of the Environment and Public Health Committee. So I would say on the Internal Market Committee, my focus is at the moment is probably on technology files. We hear about the Digital Markets Act or the Digital Services Act, which are actually dealing with looking at how we can engage, regulate, control, whatever word you want to use, the large tech companies. By that I mean those ones that have such an impact in our lives now, the Facebooks, Twitters, Apples, Amazon, play a really important role in our lives now. But many would, in fact, the Commission considers, and I think probably the Parliament, when they vote in December as well, will agree that they do have too much of a reach and they play such a dominant role that they need to be sort of reined in a little bit and set out the parameters within which they can operate. So that you'll hear a lot about it. I mean, if in terms of content safety, taking it down, dealing with small businesses, target advertising, privacy, your e-privacy, your data, all those type of issues that are concerns about these companies, but at the same time, there's concerns, but at the same time, I think they play a very important role, or that there's a strong consumer demand for what they offer us. So we need to get that balance right, that we keep consumers, citizens, customers happy. We don't overreach, but at the same time, we don't let situations we can't. I mean, Facebook is in the news every day for the last number of days now. And can the legislation we're dealing with address the type of concerns that are there with consumers and with citizens as a whole? So that's probably one bit of my work at the moment. And I'm also leading for the EPP on a file on artificial intelligence. It's not regulated and isn't regulated worldwide. So Europe wants to be the first to set standards for this, as similar as we did with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and set standards at the same time, allow it to establish and to be present in our lives. But if there's a high risk involved, well, then there must be much more accountability. Also we need to build consumer confidence and let consumer know where it is and how it is very much part of our lives now, artificial intelligence. So that's what I'm dealing with directly in those committees. In environment and public health, we've been very obviously health for the last 12-18 months now has been very much to the fore, the role the European Union does play in public health. And should it play a stronger role? Well, the answer after COVID is certainly that it should. So we now are moving to strengthen the European Centre for Disease Control, the European Medicines Agency, give them more power and more people and more resources to have a greater reach, to engage better with member states, to try and predict what's going to come down the tracks, and engage internationally with organizations such as the World Health Organizations and more, so that we can be better prepared for a pandemic when and if it is going to come again, and probably there will be another pandemic, maybe in my lifetime, I don't know, but we have to be prepared for it. And we need, lessons learned from COVID. We need stronger structures in place, more of a rapid response, a bit like our NEFIT, if you like, to have a health emergency response agency. That's what we're discussing at the moment. I'm actually sitting in the Parliament in Strasbourg in my office. We're here, it's our second time since after the summer being present in the Parliament. So we can it's kind of semi-remote, but things are back, and we are participating in plenary and not voting remotely as we were for the last 18 months. So just to give you a sense of where I am, and I know probably see from a lot of you, you're sitting in your offices or homes working remotely, and it's great that something like this can bring us together. I don't want to hold up a lot of, I'm more interested in your comments, questions, but that's about where I'm at the moment in Parliament. We're looking to what we call the Fit for 55 package, which is 55%, how we're going to reduce our carbon emissions by 55% by the year 2030, which is only 9 years away. So every sector is going to have to play its part in that. Energy, we hear a lot about energy at the moment, and we've had discussion today on energy security, and making sure that the lights don't go out. I mean, it's something, I think it's a conversation that's very real now. So that's a big element that's going to affect all committees, if you like, across Parliament. And of course, Brexit has been mentioned, and we absolutely cannot have a conversation now without mentioning Brexit is really important, and the impact it's going to have on us. We know the deal has been fixed. There's a lot of concern, I know, in Northern Ireland regarding the protocol, but the protocol, as we know, is there to ensure we don't have a hard border on the island of Ireland. And it's important because I would maintain always the Good Friday Agreement is something that's owned by the people of the island. They voted for it, North and South. We voted for that Good Friday Agreement, so it has to be protected. And I'm not going to give a political state or get into the politics of it now. It's the reality on the ground. Brexit is there. It's an issue. We have to deal with it. This week in Parliament, we agreed to formally establish a UK European Union Parliamentary Assembly. We'll be comprised of 37 members from each Parliament, 37 UK, 37 from the European Union. And that will be just to have an engagement at political level, so that issues we're not hearing about issues in media or secondhand, that there are, and also that there is a forum if things do come up and if there are issues, that we can build we can use the relationships that we have built through such a parliamentary organisation. We've seen it work really well in the British-Irish parliamentary organisations. This now will be a United Kingdom European Union Parliamentary Assembly. We have similar arrangements of delegations with many regions, probably most regions in the world and countries. So it's nothing new. So that's just a brief run through, really. I mean, I know that what has been said is I'm going to how I can help CSO have their voice heard in Parliament committee and plenary debates. Well, I would hope that we're always available and to meet and to engage, and because I always depend on my work. I mean, it depends on engaging and hearing from people and hearing the impact of proposals, because the proposals come from the Commission, they're discussed in Parliament, they're agreed or they're not agreed, they're amended or they're not amended. And my strengths or the information, I do depend on being informed by organisations such as yourselves. And I know you have a track record in approaching and engaging with MEPs, many of you, and hope that can continue too. But maybe at least as the conversation goes on, I can contribute more as things come. But really happy to engage now and to hear the issues, and hopefully, in case I forget to say it at the end, that this would just be a beginning, and to know my contacts are there always, and happy to have a conversation like this at any point. Really, I think it's great. It's shown now with COVID that we're only as far as our kitchen table from anybody now. The time of having to drive half the length of the country to meet somebody and then you miss them or something, or those days are gone, thankfully. So they're one of the benefits of COVID. It's taught us that we can get together at any point on any issue. So thanks, Lisa, and thank you everybody for listening. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Deirdre. Thanks so much, and we will indeed continue the conversation. Before any of us begin to look weary, I might just take a quick screenshot, if that's okay with everybody, just so we have something to share on social media with such a great gathering today, if that's okay. So anyone who prefer not to be in the screenshot, you can turn your cameras off for a moment there. Perfect, thank you very much. And without further ado, I will pass over to our second MEP speaker today, who is Billy Kelleher, part of the Renew group, of course, in the European Parliament. And he is a Fianna Fáil MEP, of course, for Ireland South. So anyone from Ireland South today, you're particularly in a treat with two of your MEPs. And of course, Billy was TD for Cork North Central too, and he was Minister for State for Labour Affairs and for Trade and Commerce at another point. Billy, you're very welcome today. Thanks for joining us, and we might turn over to you for a few comments, if you wouldn't mind.
Good, Lisa. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. I mean, one of the biggest challenges in Europe, I suppose, for many, many years in terms of representation was communicating with constituency issues and communicating with constituents. And certainly the COVID pandemic in a way has sort of changed our ability to communicate as we are now using Zoom and other forms of technology and social media platforms to engage on a regular basis. So from the COVID perspective, in terms of actually meeting constituents, it actually has highlighted that from now on, Europe shouldn't be seen as distant. When MEPs are abroad, either in Brussels or in Strasbourg, the plenary, that we should still be capable of engaging in fora like this. And I very much welcome the opportunity to speak on it. As highlighted, I'm a first-time MEP, so I was elected in June of 2019. The first 6 months of that particular mandate were taken up primarily with Brexit. So Brexit was a very, very big issue during the first 6 months of my mandate. So from June 2019 right through to the end of the year, it was primarily Brexit was the big political issue. Now, to be honest, since the withdrawal agreement was ratified and the UK has formally left the European Union, Brexit has fallen off the political agenda over here. Europe is getting on with the business of what is relevant to the European Union, excluding the UK, obviously. So, I mean, we have to be conscious of that when we talk about Brexit, that many countries just sort of glaze over it now to a certain extent and are looking to what the European Union is going to do in the future, minus the UK. But I mean, we have to be conscious that we have to keep Brexit very much to the fore in public discourse and in political debate as well here in the European Union to ensure that the key issues around the impact of Brexit on the island of Ireland are not forgotten about. So that's a role I think that Irish MEPs are trying to play, and it's not to elevate the political discourse to Europe versus the UK. It's just to try and ensure that we try and resolve some of the outstanding issues and problems that are still there, i.e. the Northern Ireland Protocol and the challenges that is causing, and the political implications in the event of the protocol being disbanded or abolished by the triggering of Article 16, particularly from the UK perspective. So we want to ensure that we don't have that difficulty. And without highlighting it too much, but I mean, in the event of us having a hard border on the island of Ireland, well, then it could have a permanent damaging effect to. Am I gone, or can you still hear me?
We still have you there, Billy. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's just one or two mics on as well. If we just want mute, thanks.
Okay. So we just want to ensure that we don't permanently damage the peace process, and also equally damage the economies in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. So from that perspective, we want to maintain Brexit at a political level to ensure that some of those issues are resolved. The Brexit Adjustment Reserve Fund, of course, was recently announced, where Ireland secured about 1 billion. Now, I mean, Ireland has already spent quite a substantial amount of money in terms of getting Ireland prepared for the new world post-Brexit. So we spent significant sums of money, and we've been able to recoup some of that. Of course, some of your viewers today will be ones that have been directly impacted by Brexit, particularly the areas of fishing, for example. It is a significant challenge in the industry now. We have lost a substantial share of our fishing, and that will have an immediate financial implication for the fishing industry and for coastal communities that depend on it as well. So I'd like to see that the Brexit Adjustment Reserve would facilitate support for the fishing communities. But beyond that, I think we actually have to stretch out and try and renegotiate the common fisheries policy to ensure that we can have burden sharing, solidarity with our European colleagues. In other words, that we try and get some additional fish quota for the Irish fishing industry. And bearing in mind, we have a substantial body of water, yet we only catch 3% of the European fish catch, which would indicate that it is unfair in terms of the quota allocation, and we certainly need to revisit that. So that's just an issue. The other big issue, of course, that's happening at the moment is there's consultations going across Ireland in terms of the common agricultural policy. That is an area that has a direct impact, again, from a European perspective. The policies that we pursue here in Europe have a direct impact on farmers and the food industry in general. And we need to ensure that when we come forward with our plan for the Common Agricultural Policy review, which is taking place now, and that will be then implemented from 2023 onwards, that we actually have the flexibility at member state level to come up with plans that will support Irish agriculture. For a long time, people were complaining that Brussels was too bureaucratic and that was too centralised. So the most recent CAP proposals now allow member states to draw up a plan on how they would, formulate various schemes for the Common Agricultural Policy, and that is happening now. So hopefully, Ireland will make an application. They'll present their plan, and that should be hopefully accepted in the near future. And that will allow certainty for farmers and for the food industry in the years ahead. Of course, there is significant challenge, Lisa. I don't want to go on about it too much, but I mean, the issue of climate and climate change is now the most fundamentally important policy initiative of the European Union. So in other words, every other policy that we undertake in Europe is first of all put through the prism of the environment. So any policy that has a negative impact on the environment will not be supported by the European Union. So in the areas of transport, in agriculture, in construction, in power generation, all of these major emitters, there's going to be significant pressure on for us to come up with imaginative solutions to address the issue of climate change and to make sure that we comply with not only our internal obligations, but also us signing up to the Paris Agreement in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and CO2. And that will be, as I said, a challenge for the government, for the Parliament, and for all aspects of industry in Ireland and citizens as well. And we're going to have to change how we do business. So there are some of the big issues, I suppose, that are very relevant. Sometimes people look on European policy as slightly abstract and remote, but in areas of fishing, common agricultural policy, and climate change, where the European Union has major competencies, they do have a meaningful and direct impact on people's lives, and we want to make sure that we advocate and articulate our views to ensure that we get the best possible outcomes for Ireland. So look, enough of me, as I say. I will hand it back to you, Lisa, and to your audience. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Billy. And those last few lines you said, I'm going to write those down because that's exactly why we're here today and what NasCSO is all about. So without further ado, folks, we're going to jump into Q&A. I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Kieran O'Driscoll, our Policy and Research Officer, who is our, as I say, in-house fisheries expert. He's done work on the Common Fisheries Policy and the IEA's Emerging Voices Group, focusing on Ireland's sea fisheries and the impacts of Brexit and numerous other things. So Kieran, I'll pass over to you, and you might say couple focal and pass to everybody who has questions. So anyone with questions, feel free to raise your hand, drop them into the chat, or jump in when Kieran invites you to. Thanks, Kieran.
Perfect. Thanks, Lisa. I'm very welcome to you all today for joining us this afternoon. As you said, I'm the Policy and Research Officer at European Movement Ireland. And many guys, as I've kind of worked on kind of things with the Common Fisheries Policy. I'm from West Cork with a fishing background family, so that's something I can't get away from, and I'm very glad for that. So I've done numerous pieces of research like that for the IEA and a few other places, including the Irish Examiner. And in June, I had the great privilege to kind of present before the European Parliament's Fisheries Committee, which I was delighted to do. But that, I think, is what I'll say about myself, because the priority is listening to you guys today. So Lisa, I might just ask you to, I suppose, to end the recording bit of our first part. And once that's taken place, of course, then we have some questions already coming in from everyone. And of course, like Patrick has his raised hand, so we'll jump to Patrick just as the recording is ended.